Hey, you guys. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm here with my co-host, Annie. Good morning, Annie.
Good morning.
And today we are going to kind of break down a couple of the articles. I thought they worked really well together. A couple of the articles in the winter issue of the magazine. One is by Hannah Lugabill, and it is called Stress in Motherhood. And we will get to the second one in a few minutes. But we thought this was such first of all, we love Hannah's writing. We always love when she writes for the magazine. It's always so good and always just makes us think. And it usually hits on something that we can all really relate to. And so this article, Stress in Motherhood, is definitely something that as mothers, like this is what we do. We can kind of make it our identity and to kind of be one of those worrywart mothers where we're always afraid of this or afraid of that or stressed about this or stressed about that. And so we're going to talk about that today and talk about how, if we're being honest, and her article hits on it too, um, we're actually commanded over and over in scripture to not worry and to trust in God, because really, I mean, if you're excessively worrying, you're really not trusting in God. You're trusting
Right.
that your own worry is buoying your family up instead of God's sovereignty,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Um, and I know we all like have our different things. We all have our different pain points where we stress about certain things and somebody else might not. But I think as mothers, we can collectively cover all the bases
Yeah.
of our kids' lives and our families' lives. And so we're going to just chat about that today. So, Annie, when you were reading through it, I know this was one of your favorite articles too. So, um, first of all, when you're looking at your family, looking at your kids, where are some of the areas? Because I know, like, people listening, I think it can be helpful to know that other people get hung up on some of the same areas as well.
Mhm.
What are some of the areas that you get hung up with worry? And you can be as general or as detailed as you want to, but what are some of those areas and what were some of the things that Hannah pointed out that honestly it was convicting? I'm just going to use the word convicting.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
we
I
use we
agree.
use things like, "Oh, that made me think," or "Oh, that was offensive," or whatever, but truly it's like, "No, you were just convicted." Like
Hmm.
that's what it was. So,
Yes.
anyway, what are some of your areas that you struggle with this? And what were some of the things that Hannah said that stood out to you?
Hmm. I think on like a more general level that I bet any mother would agree with this is I'm I feel like kind of a constant worry for me is it sounds very general, I guess, when you say it, but like am I am I doing the right thing? Like, and in mostly in regards to like their emotions, because they're so much harder to, to pull out and to determine like, is this what they're feeling? Especially if you have a kid who maybe can't pinpoint those themselves, Um, I'm always wanting to like support them in that way. And I am constantly worried that I'm not quite getting it, like I'm not reading this kid right, or not providing what they need emotionally. And so I think that one can cause some stress for me. Um, and I'm sure most moms probably feel the same way. So somewhat in that, I guess, and just feeling like I think what she had said, one of the things she'd said was that purposing and intentionally choosing a better outlook than this is stressful and this is hard.
Yeah.
I don't look at motherhood or homemaking, and I don't look at it like with disdain and feeling like, oh, this is hard. Why is this what I'm doing? Or why is this what God has for me? Like I 100%. I know not everybody feels this way, but I 100% feel like this is exactly what God has purpose for me. And I did not spend most of my life thinking that. my husband and I were married for 10 years, pretty insistent that we didn't want children. I'm so thankful that God,
We're dinks.
um,
Remember that?
exactly. Oh,
We're
yes.
dinks. We get to go to Costco and eat pizza.
Yes, yes. And so, you know, I, for a long time, that just was not something that even was like on my radar. But as soon as I stepped into it, I was like, oh, this
Mhm.
is what God made me for. Like, and I have had never looked back. I've never felt like any disdain for that title or that job that I have. So I don't look at it like, oh, this is a stressful and hard job. I guess I look more at like this specific individual things, like this particular season or like season with this kid, this age, whatever. This is hard, like I don't know how to, maybe like move past this bump that we're in or whatever. And so um but even with that, I don't necessarily feel like, and sometimes I still have to intentionally choose, like she was saying, intentionally choose a better outlook. Like this is not
Mhm.
how things are going to stay forever. We're going to move past this. I'm going to, continue to dig in and pray. Like, how do I reach this child's heart? Um, how do I get, a good read, or do you know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess I just feel like in a very, that feels really general, but those are the things that kind of stress me out the most, is that I'm just missing the mark with my kids.
Mhm.
I don't really stress about school. I don't have like that feeling of, oh, what if they're not learning enough, for the most part.
Mhm.
That's not something I stress about. But then, like, in a more specific sense, I like the one big thing that is just a total hitch for me, and it still is, and I have to like give it over to God constantly, is their health.
Mhm.
I just have had in my head for the longest time that like we're the next tragedy waiting to happen, which sounds horrible, I know, and I hate voicing that, but it's really true for me. I worry about their health constantly. And
Mhm.
so that's like the one big area that I feel like I truly have to, like, big picture, look at it and be like, this, if I believe in God's sovereignty, then I believe that he is a good God that has a good purpose, even when it doesn't, even should it not look like
Mhm.
I think it should look. And so,
Right.
yeah,
Like even if
that's,
your worst fears were to happen,
yep.
it doesn't change the person of God. It doesn't change who he is. And I think too, when we worry, I know I have to remind myself this, that we just were never promised ease in life. We
Right.
actually were promised the opposite. Like we will struggle in this
Hmm.
life, and some people have certain struggles, some people have other struggles, and sometimes we're jealous of other people's struggles when we have something really major going on.
Hmm.
Um but we just can't know everything that God has kind of worked out into the future, and how he actually is working out all of those struggles for his purposes in some way.
Hmm.
It seems crazy sometimes, how it could ever work out for good.
Hmm.
But I think of some of like the hardest things in my life, and I'm like, yeah, I actually that's all true. I
Yeah.
mean, n- certain things I wouldn't want to go through again, but um, I see now how I'm different from them in a
Hmm.
better way,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And growth is difficult. I mean,
yeah.
it's meant to be difficult, it's meant to push us in areas that we need to be pushed. And I'll if you follow me at all on social media, you'll know this. And of course, Alicia, you know this. But my youngest broke his leg over the holidays, and it was a bad break, and it caused these, like, besides the fact that I was worried about him, his pain, everything that was going on there, I had to face some like really big fears
Mm,
that weekend. Big fears, like being by myself in the medical community. Um, my husband stayed behind with my daughters. And so but I looking even just a couple weeks out, looking back on some of that, I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
felt so held by God. Like in every single step that I took and every decision I had to make, and every, like, as the problem got bigger and as things got scarier or looked scarier, I just felt so incredibly held by him. And it was literally, I think I described it to someone that it was, he was like, let me go before you here. And then it
Mhm.
was like, okay, wait, let me go before you here. And then if with every single thing. And so, I mean, a broken leg is a broken leg. It's not the end of the world. It's not, it was big for us, um, but I still, even at that, like those are the kinds of things when I say health, it's even something like that. I get
Right.
so worked up and concerned about that kind of stuff, and I don't want to be that mom,
Mhm.
I want to be a mom that has a certain amount of peace, and can say like, okay, this is the situation we're in, and we're going to like move forward. And I do feel like through some of this, God was like really teaching me how to deal with some of these situations. So
Mhm.
it was good, but yeah, growth in those areas, I feel like I grew, and it was difficult. But
Mhm.
that's just how growth is, no matter what how you're growing, or in what ways. It's meant to be hard, you know.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was wild. I still can't believe that happened. And I can't believe we were together when it happened.
I
Even
know.
crazier. Um, but it really did. I mean, just kind of being an outsider to the situation. I mean, I was there, but it was just kind of like things just clicked into place. And um, even like little promptings that I had to text you or say to you or whatever, I feel like everything was just like
Hmm.
any like um again, like any like y- you know argument that could have happened or any like argument's not the right word, but it does get kind of iffy sometimes when you're working with a lot of doctors and and you want
Hmm.
specific things. um I just feel like all of that was just like smoothed out, and like you knew what to say, and it
Hmm.
was like you were ready and had a plan, and you just kind of went
Hmm.
in there and were able to like do exactly what you wanted to do. And
Hmm.
um yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But then, sometimes I don't know. I know for me, sometimes I feel like God has let some of my worries happen to
Hmm.
just ultimately just to like rely on him
Hmm.
completely. Like, I knew this was going to happen. I've stressed about
Hmm.
this forever. And here we are. But then, you get to the other side of things and you're like, okay, well,
Hmm.
he actually was sovereign through everything like we knew he was in the beginning. And
Yep.
probably it would be to my benefit to just not waste all that time and energy um, being worried and stressed
Hmm.
out about what might happen.
Hmm.
Because really, truly, worry is a thief of your present time. And
Hmm.
so, if you're always stressing about what might happen, you're just, you're missing everything that's right in front of you. And kids just grow too fast to waste time like that. Like, you just don't have as much time as you think you're going to have. Um, I know, like, for me right now, always kind of like in the back of my mind, like a constant kind of niggling is, um, I don't know if worry is even, it's just like a what if. And I guess that's worry. But I have seen, in my life, just such wild things happen to good families that you think are so solid and
Hmm.
are going to be together forever. And it's just, and of course the Bible says it too, but it has really caused me to really, really hate divorce. Like, I just think divorce is one of the worst things that could happen. And I know like we live in a total feminist society where it's like, if your marriage isn't making you happy, then just ditch. And like you need to like you need to take care of you first, and all of these things that actually are so untrue. Um, that marriage is hard and that you
Mm,
should stick with it. And even when it is hard, because you're crushing the lives of the children
mhm.
in your home and all the things, right? So in the back of my mind, I'm not worried necessarily about my own marriage, but when I think about my kids, because we're
Mhm.
kind of there, right? Like we're kind of
Yeah.
to the season where they are starting to date somewhat, and we have taught our kids that you date for a purpose, you date for marriage. And so whether or not they're like totally have that in the forefront of your mind, I mean, we've taught
Mhm.
our kids as well as we can on these topics and we continue to. Um, but whether or not they choose to apply those things that they've learned, it, it's kind of out of your control. And so
Right.
um, that is like kind of I would say in the last couple of years, like just a niggling worry that I have that
Mhm.
my kids will um
Pick
I
the
guess
wrong
pick the wrong
person.
person, just
Yeah.
not be wise in their choices, and
Mhm.
you know, pursue dating with their heart rather than, wisdom. And I mean, of course you need heart too because you're falling in love and all those things, but like
Sure.
you can't completely like lose your head either. And
Right.
so I don't know. I guess I want like, and maybe that's where I could say like I could sum up where my a lot of my worry falls is I do have a vision for what our family looks like in 10, 20 years, 30
Mhm.
years. I have, you know, an idea of the kind of mom with adult children that I want to be, and I have an idea of what I want that to look like. And I mean, it's nothing like superficial or whatever. It's basically like I want to be an available grandma to help if there's
Mhm.
grandkids, and I want to have my children around me and close by so that we can do things together and like we can live life kind of together, which is how I think
Mhm.
we were really meant to do life for the most part. But I just worry, I guess, that things aren't going to go according to my plan. I'm a
Mm.
planner. And so when I'm thinking
Mhm.
like, what if it doesn't actually go the way I've planned? That kind of can send me into uh, just a continuous stream of stress and worry.
Sure.
Like what if they do pick the wrong person? Or what if, that person is an unbeliever and they um, are kind of pulled away? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
those things that I think come with older kids, and all the basic stuff, right? Like again, that they would be hurt or that, with them driving, I mean, it's just like I'm constantly
Oh.
praying, like, Lord, cover them, cover their car, like protect their car with
Yeah.
like a little bubble. Um,
Mhm.
they like to hunt. They really like hunting. And so every time they go out, I'm just like, because I mean, I grew up in a small town. I mean, we knew people that got hurt doing those kinds of things,
Mhm.
car accidents and, farming accidents, hunting accidents, all those things. And so I'm like,
Right.
um, just really, I do think it comes down to just training your brain. Like Hannah's saying, like it is a mind, you have to consciously decide.
Mhm.
And I know for me, and I have these, as I get older, I have these nights where I wake up usually around 3 o'clock in the morning, which I think is a hormonal thing.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like I don't even have a chance to realize I'm awake before I'm having some freakish thought about one of my kids.
Mm.
Um, and I remember kind of having that first, it's not like a panic attack, but it is kind of panic. Do you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, and you have some terrible thought about one of your kids? And I remember the very first time it happened, Jack, my 18-year-old, he was pretty small. He had just been born. He was a pretty small baby. And I just remember waking up and I went into the bathroom and I was just like sitting on the side of the tub and like I mean, I don't even remember what the scary thing was that was going through my head, but I was just like sweating. I was just
Mm,
terrified of this thing that could happen. And I just remember like thinking like I'm not going to be able to like go back to sleep. There's just no way I'm going to be able to go back to sleep unless like God just removes this from my brain so I can go
mhm,
back to sleep. And so I just remember like sitting there in the bathroom, like praying, like, Lord, just cover Jack, just cover Noah, help me to go back to sleep, take these, fearful thoughts far away.
mhm.
I know that you are, protecting my kids and that you have us covered, just protect us, always just protect us. Like that's my prayer.
Mhm.
Um, and so it really is. And it's happened a lot since then in the last 18 years or whatever. And I just have to. If I let myself, even for a second, like kind of go down that line of like, oh, yeah, I actually like this is a crazy dream or whatever I just had, but I did see something in the news about this actually happening to somebody else just around
Mhm,
Vera's age or whatever it is. And
mhm.
if I even let myself for a second like go down that train of thinking, um I can just I'll be up for hours. And
Yeah,
so
same.
I just can't.
Mhm,
Um and I think like switching gears a little bit from like these big, I think legitimate concerns sometimes, right? With
mhm.
our kids, like there is a lot of pain and suffering in this world and we see it all around us. And so to think that our family will be unscathed completely isn't, you know, it we're going to all have our stuff.
Right.
Um but I think that on that's I feel like kind of a macro scale of worry, but then we
Mhm,
have like kind of the micro scale of worry that we worry about kind of probably just without even thinking that we're worrying.
mhm,
And talking to a lot of homeschool moms, I get emails all the time. They're, worried about their kids reading, worried about uh bad spelling. Spelling is a big one. I have people email me all the time about spelling programs, spelling, reading, math facts, um, college. Should they go to college? Like all of these decisions that we really make a lot of decisions as a homeschool
mhm.
mom every single day, what our kids eat, what activities we sign up for, co-op or no co-op, college classes in high school or no. Um, classical versus, I don't know, a more textbook version of homeschooling. Like there's just so many things I think that we deal with on a day-to-day basis and
Mhm.
it really eats up a lot of our mind and we do have to make these decisions.
Sure.
Um and I do think like the longer that you homeschool, the easier some of those become because you see the process working as your kids get older. And
Right.
again, it's not maybe exactly how you thought it would be or whatever, or what you picture, but it's like, oh, a lot of times it's usually better.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
a lot of times it's better because you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even teach you that, but you must have learned
Picked
that
it up
somewhere.
somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. And as
Um,
you see it play out in the older ones, it does, I mean, they're all different and how they learn is different, but having that, as you see like maybe your oldest and you're like, "Oh, they finally got this." Like, okay, maybe they didn't get it at
mhm,
the time that public schools said that they should get it, um, but they did finally, move past this, and it gives you some confidence for the ones behind that it's like, okay, these guys will get it eventually too in their own way, in their own timing, and it all looks different, but it does help to see some of it play out in your oldest,
mhm.
those guinea pigs.
It's true. It's true. So I think that, having older kids, some of those worries have fallen away.
Mhm.
Um, But as far as just like, I feel like kind of the posh thing to talk about now is, your mental health and how are you like how is your lifestyle and your stress load? And those
Mhm.
questions always like make me laugh because I'm like the stress that I actually have in my life right now, I don't really know quite what I would do differently to alleviate some of that. I mean, some of it is just there's a lot of things to do
Sure.
when you run a business, homeschool, run a house, and then have multiple kids. So, and everybody kind of has their own level of this. And so, um, I think that's always interesting because again, it's kind of like goes along with like the, put you first. Like if I was going to be totally stress free, like the world would say to me, you should probably be, living alone with no kids and going on vacation all the time, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but I know that that's not true. And like just because something is hard, um, it doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing. You're
mhm.
not doing anything wrong necessarily. You're just doing something hard and there's just a lot of moving parts. And so,
Sure.
but I do think that, and again, I hear from a lot of moms that are like, I'm really struggling with the balance of homeschooling multiple kids, keeping up on the house. I feel like I'm in survival mode all the time. I hear that one a lot. I'm in survival mode all the time. My house is a mess. I'm not making meals regular. Like everything is just kind of a mess. Like we're not starting at a decent time. Our routine is off. These are like common things that I hear over and over. And I also do think that we kind of live in a culture that it's like, well, if it's hard, just do your best and like don't
Mhm,
try any harder than you really need to, but just,
mhm.
it's
You're doing great.
you're doing
Just
great.
yeah.
Even though, no one has clean clothes and
Yeah.
you haven't, cleaned the toilet in 6 months, you're doing great. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe we should try to do a little bit better always,
Right.
right? Like,
I mean, it's not meant to shame somebody, but there are always areas where we can grow and do better. And we shouldn't look at that as, oh, someone is shaming me because, I have this really hard situation and they're not just affirming me in my absolute like muck that I'm staying
right.
in. You know what I mean? Like, of course, you might have some really difficult circumstances that are like, that have got you in that place, but there are always things that we can do to help clean up those areas. And it's whether we're willing to, it's usually hard work. Like it's whether we're willing to do something difficult um, to clean up those areas or to make something a little bit easier.
Mhm.
Um, like one of the things that I remember I have not always in my adult life been great at being in the word in the morning. I'm so thankful that I have been for like the last 5 years. I have found a good rhythm. I have figured out, when it works best for me. And I have um, seen just how important it is to my day. But this I feel like is a good example because I also like to read. I like to read other books. And in the morning that's typically what I do. And what I had to do was I had to stop reading my book a little bit earlier so that I
Mhm.
had time to be in the word before my kids woke up. And that probably sounds really like easy to some people, but for me, it was a total selfish. I didn't want to. Like I didn't want to put down that book, but just making that small change, it was difficult for me. I didn't want to do it. I felt like I just didn't want to. And
Mhm.
so, but making that small change over like day after day after day after day after day, I began to see why it was so important and I saw the benefits of doing that. And so it's even like those are the little things that I'm talking about. We
Right.
all can change small parts of our day to make things easier or to get you in a place where you need to be. If you're willing to look at your day and go, okay, why can't I keep up on the laundry?
Right.
Or there's all kinds of things that we can look at and change,
Right.
to make life easier.
Right. And for me, that's meant like, okay, well, we have too much on the schedule. We
Hmm.
have something has to go. And we've had to cut out things that we enjoyed doing because not all good things are necessary things. And so,
Right.
you can't do everything. And, um, that's funny that you bring that up because we all have the same 24 hours. And so it really does come down to the choices that we make and how we're choosing to spend our time. If we, if we can't cook dinner. There are many, many easy ways to make a healthy dinner. It doesn't have to take hours and hours. I mean, it
Mhm.
takes probably 10 minutes to prep a whole chicken to roast in the oven.
Yep.
Um, so there's just things like that. And I was listening to I don't remember his title, some kind of therapist, or like a psychiatrist or something. He was a doctor. And he said that in his practice, when he has anyone come in that says that they are anxious or depressed, the first thing that he has them do is pull out their phone and show him their screen time.
Ooh.
Ugh. I know. I'm like,
I don't like that.
I don't like that. I don't like that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, mom, if you are stressing out about your messy house and worried that your kids aren't doing enough, learning enough, on a good enough routine, um, if you really have a desire to, I don't know, start baking your own bread with your girls or uh, do some other like worthwhile activity
Mhm.
as a homemaker, as a mother, and you don't have the time, um, are you on Instagram for four
Mhm.
hours a day? Um,
Yeah.
I, I know for me, it's like I'm not reading as much as I want to all the time. And I'm like, well, probably because I'm on social media too much, right?
Mhm.
Like if I traded those hours for reading, I would be reading a lot more. Um,
Mhm.
that's it stinks. Like we don't want to like face that fact, but it is true. I
Mhm.
really do think that by and large, phones have kind of scrambled our brains in a lot of ways. Like we
Yeah.
have kind of lost some of our just logic on like how just normal life works. Like we're
Mhm.
just very connected. And most of the time, I don't know, this was a while ago. I was looking at my phone and one of my kids came over to me. I think it was Noah, my oldest. And he's like 21 and he is just not a social media guy. Like he has a Twitter account so he can like lurk and like read news and things and articles and whatever and send me really ridiculous memes and things, but he really doesn't spend much time at all. And he came
Mhm.
over, I don't remember what he was doing. He came over and sat beside me and he just looked down at my phone at what I was looking at. I don't remember what it was, but then when he saw what I was looking at, I was like instantly embarrassed. Like, how embarrassing. I'm watching like some stupid, like dancing lady pointing at words. Like, it's so meaningless and such a time.
Mhm.
And he said that. He's like, Mom, this is such a time suck. And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah, this is stupid, Mom. I'm like, yeah,
It's true.
it's true. It's like, and we're just sitting there, just mindlessly watching
Mhm.
these things and we're not even necessarily reading anymore on our phone, like reading an article or reading even a
Mhm.
caption or a blog post. Like we're just kind of hypnotized by our phones. So that's one thing I would say if we're stressed about just our daily life, uh, look at your
Yeah.
phone and your screen time because it might have something to do with it.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
which all of this kind of brings me to the second article that we thought paired well with the stress in motherhood. And that is, do you have the official title of this article in front of you? It was written by our friend Ashley Williams, and she is very good about being disciplined with her time. Um,
Like more than anybody I know. And I don't actually know her,
right.
but
More
like
than,
I mean she's
yeah.
just follower because she'll give you, I feel like she just has all of the ways of being very organized, very, she seems like a person who has more hours in her day. We know she doesn't, but
Right.
she's just good at it. She's
But
really good at it.
I think what she does well is I think she does walk away from her phone. You will notice that
Yeah.
she seems to get on Instagram, post what she needs to post for that day, and then keep going with her day. And then she seems to me to really use the margins of her day. I know the other
Mhm.
day she posted, her daughter had like, I don't know, some dance competition or something.
Mhm.
And she was like, here I am, like between, it was like between dance, like, um, whatever they call them, dances. I
Yeah.
don't know. Between like the show that her daughter was part of, um, she ran home and filmed a video for her YouTube channel and then went
Uh-huh.
back. Like
Yeah.
that's using your time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was obviously with close enough driving distance that she could just pop home, do the video quick, and then get back there to where her daughter needed her to be
Hmm.
and watch her perform. And so, I mean, I was just, it was such a silly, like quick little post, but I was like, okay, I'm inspired by that because
Yeah.
so much like things in my mind are like, okay, I've got to do this, this, and this. Well, there's no way I'm getting to this. But it's like
Hmm.
sometimes, like, if you just start, if you just
Hmm.
go, like, just do it. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm actually done. And you think about things so much longer than it actually even takes to do them.
Hmm.
Um, so what is the name of this article that she wrote?
Yeah. So this one is Sunday Prep: 6 Simple Ways to Have a Better Week. And if you're
Okay.
watching,
Yeah,
it's this
I
one.
wanted to get like the actual name of the article and this was a very like practical article. I
It's
love
so her.
it's so Ashley. It's like I love, just even though a lot of these things I'm like I do these things, but everybody has their own twist on like the way that they organize and the way that they plan that
Right.
you can always pick up little things from other people and then kind of incorporate them into what you're already doing. And I just found it really helpful. And
Yeah.
so I thought that we would just kind of close out this episode with ways that you can prepare. And this is on a Sunday, uh, which I actually think is a good idea,
Hmm.
because to take some time to think about your week and just be prepared in your mind. It's not like I'm not suggesting anybody spends the entire day in the kitchen, or, spending hours and hours and hours on Sunday, like planning their lesson plans for all of eternity or anything like that. But just little things just so that your Monday morning you wake up and you're like, okay, like I know what's going on. I know what's
Right.
for dinner. I know what we're doing for school today. Um, because nobody else is going to do that for you. Um,
Hmm.
and they shouldn't. Like that's our job as the homemaker, as the person that runs our homeschool. Like, we need to be in charge and we need
Hmm.
to like it. I think too, I know for my kids, when we're off in our schedule and as they've gotten older, it changes a little bit, but I feel like everybody feels more secure when mom like knows what's going on. She's
Hmm.
up before everybody. Um, there's a routine and it's familiar and it's safe and it feels good, I think, for the
Yeah.
family. Um, so just like springing off of Ashley's article or
Hmm.
things that you do in your own, Sunday prep or whatever prep. Like what are some things that you do just to kind of make your week go better so that you're
Hmm.
not stressed?
Right. Right. Well, I actually, a lot of the things that she did, I feel like I do on some level as well. Um, if we're talking specifically about Sundays, I do on Sunday evening usually look at, because I have like I don't plan super. I don't have a really strict plan for school. I
Mhm.
have kind of a big picture. This is what we're studying. These might be some of the topics that we're going to touch on or whatever. But and I have that sketched out. But then on Sundays, I typically take that and I'm like, okay, so if this is where we're at this week, we're going to try and hit these three things, you know? And so I'll kind of write those out. But again, I don't say like this is what we're doing on Monday and this is what we're doing on Tuesday. It
Mhm.
just I've tried that. I have tried that before because I'm a pretty like planned, organized person, but that just does not seem to work for us for our school. And so just kind of having like a big picture for the week, I'll kind of sketch that out, based off of my even bigger picture.
Mhm.
And so that I kind of know what's going on during the week. I look at the menu because I make a monthly menu.
Mhm.
So I'll look at the week to see, what kinds of things are on the calendar for the week, things that I might need to prep. And with that, I usually make like a bread plan because like we've talked about before, I
Yep.
bake our bread and our bread products. And so I need to be able to know, like, oh, if we're having hamburgers later in the week, I need to make sure that I either have buns in the freezer or I need to make a batch or whatever. So then I'll kind of sketch out a plan for that as well. Um, so I do those things on Sunday evenings, I would say, or at some point throughout the day, whenever it works out. I'm really not strict on when I do those things. But at some point, maybe even during the weekend, if like our Sunday is taken up by other things, I make sure that I have looked at those, looked at our calendar to see what kinds of things are going on in the week. And it just helps, it helps to be, you feel more prepared and ready for the week.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I do that I feel like helps a ton, and this isn't just Sunday, so this is every day, but a long time ago, um, I my sister had I don't even remember quite what we were talking about, but I think I was talking about or just sharing about how I felt like very hurried in the mornings. Like I wasn't the kids get up and it's like everything
Mm-hmm.
is like go, and this was when my kids were much younger, but it's like everything was we're getting going as soon as everyone's out of bed. And how I felt like I was never getting like I was having trouble finding time for myself to get ready. Like, okay, when do I get in a shower? When do I, do these things? And she just really encouraged me to get up before my kids
Mm-hmm.
and get yourself completely ready. And
Yeah.
I know that's not everybody's jam. And trust me, there are days when I feel like I would so much rather like not get dressed right now. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather just stay in these comfy clothes. But um for me, it was a total game changer because being up ahead of them, and that was a discipline that I had to. It's not hard for me now, but 8, 9 years ago, it was
Right.
really tough. That was not, and I had babies, so grace, right? There's grace in every season, but being up ahead of them when I could, when I had a decent night's sleep, whatever, being up and then getting myself ready, it changed everything because then when my kids got up, it was like I was ready, I was prepared, and I was
Right.
like ready to face the day with them. And inevitably, there's all kinds of things that they need you for, and so instead of like starting our day at 11 because everyone was up and then we were getting breakfast and then I had to find time to get ready and all of that. We were able to start our day so much earlier or, get things going earlier because I didn't have to factor in all of my things. I
Right.
was able to be fully present, helping them with the things that they needed and not feeling that like, I feel like so many, it can be so easy to feel like, I need my time, or I need
Right.
to do this for me, or I need to get ready or whatever. And those things are true. Like you do need to get ready, but motherhood is just, it's very sacrificial and that shouldn't be a bad thing. We
No.
shouldn't look at that as a bad thing. So that's the other thing that I do every morning that I feel like really transformed my days.
Mm-hmm.
Was just being ready before they got up. So,
Mm-hmm.
and as they get older, maybe that's not as important. They're sleeping later. Um, they don't need you quite the same ways that the little ones need you, physically.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe you can speak into that, whether or not that is helpful to you. Like when you do get up and get ready before the kids, do you find that helpful still in these older?
I do. I still think it's kind of the same idea. And I think I just maybe have a little bit more time because they are sleeping a little bit later and they're not like coming down at 7 a.m. I have to go wake them up, but
Hmm.
um not at 7 a.m. But I I find if I'm ready by the time I do go wake them up, it just everything is so much smoother and better. And so
Yeah.
I've had to train myself to do that too. Again, it's like I want to just sit and have my coffee in my
Yeah.
PJs and be cozy. But um I also find that when I do that and I don't do what I know I should be doing, which is like getting up and getting ready and then have, you know what I mean? Like what
Hmm.
you're saying, right? Like get ready first. Everything, it just because it really, you really do like just sitting there and being cozy.
Hmm.
And so then
Hmm.
you're just sitting there longer and longer and
Yeah.
longer. And so then you're not moving, you're not getting going.
Yeah.
And then you are starting school at 11 and it's like, ugh. this is not what I wanted. And so
Yeah.
um, I found that just setting my clothes in the bathroom um, the night before helps a lot
Mm.
because then, you know, you're like washing your face and you're like, oh, there's my clothes right there. Like I have no excuse. Like, you know, if you just do those silly little steps where it's like almost just like stupid easy to follow, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, okay.
Mhm.
Um, but also, uh, it's made some of the weekend mornings um just a little bit more indulgent. I mean, I feel like
Yes,
I
I
we
agree.
right now our church it's at kind of a weird time and so we actually don't have church until 12:30. And it's been kind of weird because then you get out of church at such a later hour, but I've actually really loved just to wake up and put my robe on and then that's the day that I'm really like taking a slow morning and I'm in
Mhm.
my robe drinking my coffee. And I do have an end point because I have to like stop and like make brunch and get ready for church. But
Mhm.
it's nice because you just have that one special day that you're looking forward to. And it's like a good, like restful thing to do on a Sunday. And you just, it can't be every day. And,
Yeah.
you know, weekdays I think should feel different than the weekend. And so,
Yeah.
um, totally agree with you on that one. I think just like getting yourself ready and then it also like kind of removes that resentment too where you're like I never get to well, yeah, I do have the time. I'm just choosing then to do something else with the time and then I'm getting mad
Mhm.
because you know, well, I'm here I am and it's 11 o'clock and I'm still not ready for the day, but I did have the time. I just
Mhm.
chose the wrong thing. And now
Mhm.
I'm mad about it, usually, is how that
Yeah.
goes.
And just because like we're at home, it doesn't that doesn't mean that we get to just like sit around. I think about like before I had kids and when I was working and I'm like I was up
Right.
and having to be to work. I had to be to work by 7:30. So there's it's not like before kids or whatever, I just got to like sit around. I mean, you had to get up and get your stuff done and get yourself to work. So I don't see how just because we're staying home with our kids, why that should look any different. And I know there's people out there that will disagree and be like, that's the beauty of homeschooling. I have friends who let their kids stay in their pajamas all day, and that's just not me. And I don't find it to be like a productive way. I don't feel productive when I'm sitting around in sweats and pajamas most of the time. Um, and I don't think it sends I'm sure people won't like this, but I don't think it sends a good message to our kids either because I don't feel like they can be as productive when they're doing
Mhm.
that either. I think that it's good to teach our kids that this is like, we're going to get ready for the day, we're going
Mhm.
to make our beds, and we're going to sit down and we're going to work because this is the time like we've purposed for work. And you're
Yeah.
right. Like then it makes the times that aren't like that, like on the weekend or whatever, it makes it more indulgent. It's like, oh, the weekend's here. Like there's
Right.
excitement in that because it's a different kind of day. We're all
Right.
excited for Saturday morning because we all get to just like sit around and let down and relax and
Mhm.
not have something that we have to sit down for, you know, and work. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a
Mhm.
good thing to teach our kids because if our kids are going to be hard workers and have jobs, they should know how to get ready for something, you
Mhm.
know?
Well, and I just know for me, my sister said to me one time years ago, she's like, "Do you ever feel like, you know, when you don't have mascara on, that you're just not fully awake?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Yes.
100%. I've never thought about it, but yes. Yes, you're
Yes.
right." And so when I put on mascara almost every day, I think of my sister. I'm like, here I am, like waking up, like,
Yeah.
and there just is something about getting ready for the day. Like
Mhm.
just you've got and I think too, people like Fly Lady, she has preached on this forever. Like she did you ever read her like years ago
Mhm.
when she was like kind of the you know, it, popular cleaning guru?
Mhm.
She always says when you get up, get dressed to your shoes right away. And
Oh, I don't think I could do that.
she says to she says to get dressed to your shoes. I don't really like shoes in the house.
Mhm.
It causes like some rifts in our marriage because we don't all feel the same way. But I don't like shoes in the house. Um, and so but during the winter time, I have like slippers with like a hard bottom,
Yeah.
a hard sole. And so I do like put those on right away, and it does
Mhm.
help me. I feel like just to like move a little faster and like be a little bit more, I don't know,
Mhm.
just directed in my day. I just feel like, okay, like I've got a purpose. I need to get going. Um, but yeah, same with the makeup, same with the mascara. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. I just feel like I'm awake. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever that means for you. Listening, I know we're all a little different in this area, but I really do think like my kids, um, I just don't feel like we're as productive if we're all in our pajamas. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
we've never done it. We have done it, but it, I don't know,
Yeah.
it just sets a tone of seriousness to our day, and not seriousness
Mhm.
like nobody's having fun. It's just like we're we're getting this done, you know?
Mhm.
We have a
But then
job. This
it
is our job right now.
Yeah, and it does make though those days like there will be days, especially when we get like big snows here, or it's just like this last week, we've literally been at like negative 26
Yeah.
all week. And there's nothing to do but stay inside. And I mean, there's no running errands. I mean, you can, we had to for a few things, but you don't want to. It's
No.
bitter out there. Like the little tiny bit of moisture that is in your nose freezes the minute you walk outside.
It
It's like
does.
icicles in there. So it's like nobody's doing anything. And so having that be something that you do one morning where it's like, hey guys, we're going to go downstairs where the fireplace is. We're not going to rush today. We're going to make cocoa. We're going to read a little longer. Like then it's fun.
Mhm.
Then it's special, and it's not just like every other day when you don't ever get out of your pajamas.
For
So
sure.
even for me, like that's special for me to have a more relaxed day. And we still do school, but it just doesn't look quite the same.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I want those days to feel like not ordinary,
Right.
a special thing. So
Right. And so I think that all of those little details, setting your clothes out, having a time that you're going to start your day, just like a loose routine or an idea of like how you want your routine to go.
mhm,
Um, I think setting all of those things in place just really helps then your family and everything to kind of work on kind of like autopilot. You all just kind of know what's going on, and everybody just has their chores for the day, their job for the day, and you just all kind of like work within those parameters, and everybody knows
mhm,
what's going on. And so you're not constantly like, oh my gosh, like we're starting school. How many times do I have to tell you? Like they already know because you started a
mhm,
regular time. Um, some other things that help me just kind of lower that stress and get ready for the week. Um, and especially on Sundays, I would say I do these things, but um, I do think that it's important to not jam pack your Sundays with things, and actually I think Ashley says this in the article, but it's so funny because I'm like, we do the exact same thing, but she calls it like protecting her Sunday or something like that.
mhm,
We do that too. I really do not plan much on Sunday except for go to church. Um, once in a while I'll run and get groceries if we're out of something, but I really try not to do much of anything except for um, just kind of resting and then
mhm,
looking over the calendar for the week. We always do like a family Sunday meeting, usually after dinner, um, where we're kind of looking at the calendar together, and we're
mhm,
going through Monday through Saturday, uh, what every day is like, and if there's anything we need to talk about. Does anybody need a ride here or there? Um, we kind of organize the schedule. Like if I need kids' help on certain days with certain things, everybody kind of knows that up front. And that has been really, really helpful with, six different people and six moving schedules all the time. It's just like everybody kind of knows what the
mhm,
week looks like going into it. And then if there's any other items coming up, um, like last night, Jack, my 18-year-old, I have, some pretty pressing things he needs to do, like for senior year stuff. So I was like, okay, here's your list. You have to make sure this is done by Tuesday or whatever.
mhm,
So we kind of use that time to touch base. So everybody is going into their week as well with a list with what they know that they need to get done that week. Um, or looking ahead, like last night we looked ahead to spring and some things that we have on the calendar for spring, so we could all kind of weigh in, and like, you know, we had some things that we needed to kind of discuss, and so we were all kind of discussing that stuff. So I just think kind of that weekly meeting is really, really nice because you're just all starting out the week on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, just doing a little bit of homeschool prep. I don't do like a lot of my lesson planning that day. Usually I will do it on a Saturday or a Friday afternoon. And so I'm kind of just going into the week looking over my plans that I already made and making sure like that all still looks good and filling in their assignment notebooks. Um, and yeah, I do monthly planning too for meals. So I also just look over the week and, is there stuff like make my grocery list and,
Mm-hmm.
just all of those little like planning things that they don't take a lot of like effort. So it's not like you're, making your kitchen explode with like lots of different projects or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that on a Sunday. Cause I do like it to be very like calm and restful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still just doing these little things that help me feel more prepared going into the week.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I liked, she did say in one of them too, the whole like clean up the kitchen and school area, which I also do.
yeah.
We school like right where the kitchen is and where we eat. That's all like one and the same in our home. So I like to have that area completely cleaned up. And that's just not on Sunday nights. Like every night, I make sure that the kitchen is like completely cleaned up. The dishes are done, um, the counters are cleaned, and all the random things that accumulate on them are
Yeah.
put away, and that the table is completely like empty and ready for the next day. If I wake up to like a mess in that area, I just feel like I'm behind from the very beginning of the day. I don't like it. For my like sanity, I make sure that that area, the rest of the house might be
Right.
like
Right.
an absolute disaster, but that gets picked up because that's where we
Mm-hmm.
spend most of our time really all day long. And
Right.
so we make sure that, or I make sure that that area is clean so
Yep.
that in the morning we're starting fresh to
Right. You're
mess it
just
up again.
starting with a clean slate. So,
Yep.
you have that time at least marked off where you're like, okay, at least for these few hours on Sunday afternoon,
Yep.
it's going to look good.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think that all of that is just so important. And it really is, just like the micro version of that worry and stress. Like if we can do some of these things, um, to alleviate some of those just stressful things in our week, and that they're going to come up anyway, but at least we have done something to, just kind of alleviate some of that stress.
Yeah.
And um hopefully just avoid, oh my gosh, what's for dinner? It's 3 o'clock and I don't know. Like you've already looked
Hmm.
at your planner and you know what you're making for meals that week. And I should mention too that every month we send out a monthly meal planner. And so if you want to get that, you can sign up for that in the description of either one of these podcast or videos. Um, and that people have said is really, really helpful. And
Hmm.
I mean, it's just a simple like calendar that you can just fill in, but I will say it is very helpful to just get that filled in.
Hmm.
And I've done some content too on like how I plan my menu if you guys want to see that. But so that's helpful, I think. But I will say though, I think when you kind of can get some of these smaller things under control in your house, it does just help with even those bigger sources of stress and worry because you've kind of trained your brain to, prepare for the week, but you've also trained your brain to prepare for the things that are coming. And
Hmm.
that might just mean when, we have these kind of worried, stressed thoughts to just train our brain to go another direction. And that should
Hmm.
be to, you know, lay it on God's feet and just trust in his sovereignty. And so if we can trust him with the small things, like what's on the menu, for
Mhm.
January or whatever.
Mhm.
It does get easier, I think, to trust him with the big things. And
Mhm.
vice versa. If we're already trusting him with like the bigger things in our life, then it should be doubly easy for, for us to get our laundry done, right?
Sure. Yeah. And when those small, like seemingly small things are somewhat under control, it provides the space that you need to be
Yeah.
able to properly deal with some of the bigger stressors, you know? So if you do have something major going on that is causing a lot of stress, you have the space to, what we should be doing is getting into the word and spending time in prayer. And those things feel like, I don't know why, because they are actually what is going to sustain us and get us through those times. But for some reason, they feel like I don't have time for that.
Right.
I don't have time for that because I have this, and this. But when those smaller things are somewhat under control and you don't have the chaos of, I don't know what I'm making for dinner, or there's, my house is a disaster, or, we're not our day is like not starting until late because everybody's in a whirlwind in the morning. When those kinds of things are, as contained and, um, I guess I keep saying under control, but when they're not chaotic,
Right.
it allows space for us to properly deal with the major stressors, and properly dealing with those is going to God.
Right. Right.
So,
So true.
yeah.
So true. So I hope that that helps just, if you have big things or small things, like again, the laundry, the menu, the daily routine, I just hope it gives you some practical ways to just kind of get all of that, like, yeah, under control because,
Mhm.
um, we want to show our kids that, like Annie, what you said at the beginning, like, we want to show our kids that we do love our life as homeschool mom. We don't want to be portraying to our kids that we're just stressed out all the time and we don't, we can't, um, our life is just chaotic and crazy all the time and making us
Mhm.
a nervous wreck. So, um, we want to show our kids that no, like we are thankful for this time that we
Mhm.
have to be with them and to disciple them and to teach them and train them every single day. And so, um, let's not only like have that in our hearts, but also on the outside too, and portray it in our house throughout the
Mhm.
week, throughout the day. Um, just let it be very apparent to our families that we're the homemaker and we are very satisfied with
Mhm.
what God has called us to do in
Right.
that area. So anyway, because it is so good, there's just no better job, right?
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
before we wrap up though, we always talk about something that we're doing currently. And
Mhm.
today we are chatting about what we are making. So we talk
Mhm.
about like what we're reading or watching or whatever. Today we're talking about what we're making.
Mhm.
So speaking of preparing and planning, that's what I'm making right now is plans. I'm making plans. I'm making plans. It's the new year, and so I feel like it's just the time of year when you're like wrapping up all of the last year's stuff and like just kind of assessing and deciding what you want to do for the upcoming year. And so
Mhm.
we're just kind of talking about like, are we going to go on a trip this year? What kind of home projects are we going to do, if any? Um, we have a graduation in May, and so we're making plans for that. So I just feel like I'm looking over the next 11 and a half months now,
Mhm.
and just making plans of what we
Mhm.
want our year to look like. So
How fun.
still don't know yet. Like there's nothing solid, except
Sure.
for graduation. We do have a date for that. But other than that, I have no idea what we're doing, but we're just trying to um, just kind of sort it out and, budget for things and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
making
Very
plans.
nice. I like it.
What are you
Very
making?
nice. Well, mine is I have known how my mom taught me how to crochet like
Oh,
a
fun.
very long time ago. Very, very, very long time ago. So I have done that for a long time, but I have gone really long stints without crocheting. I don't know if I get burned out on because to be quite honest, I don't love all of the like crocheted things out there. I feel like a
Right.
lot of it looks like really hokey and um, I like the look of knitting better, but I just was never able to pick that up. I cannot figure it out. So you have anybody out there have any great tips. I just cannot, I've tried so many times. So I've given up on that. But there are like some things that I have really enjoyed crocheting and that I feel like you can make really simply. And
Mhm.
it is so therapeutic to
Yeah.
me to have something like something to do with my hands. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like I'm trying to make space for it because again, it's just like one more thing that I'm like, how do I fit this in? But I've been doing it. My family, we always do a movie night on Friday nights. And as I get older, I have the hardest time sitting and watching anything. My mind like spins with all the other things that I could be doing or should be doing. And so it's really hard for me to just sit and watch a movie. But I want to do that. Like I want to do that with my kids and have that memory for them. And I need to just let down sometimes, and just chill out a little bit. So it's been good, but I have picked up crocheting again so that I have something that I can kind of do. So it
Fun.
feels like I'm doing something else, and it just is calming. It's very
Mhm.
calming. So anyway, I have made all kinds of different little things, but I'm currently making a baby blanket for somebody. So
Oh, cute.
yes,
So the hot pads that you gave me,
yes,
is that crocheting?
yes.
Okay.
But see,
Those
I
are
feel
so
like
pretty.
I know those look more like a knit to me. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I like them. They're a very like tight, there's no like frill to them. They're just I don't
Yeah.
know. They're simple, but yeah, I liked those a lot.
I
I
think
use
they're
mine
really
all the
pretty.
time.
I
Yeah.
guess I'd have to see like a knit compared to a crochet. Like I would have to like really see that. I don't know the difference.
Yeah.
So,
You would I think if you saw them side by side. My mom always used to call, I don't know, she probably picked it up somewhere, but crocheting's the poor man's knitting.
oh,
Which I'm like, I get that. Like that, yeah, it's just not as I'm not saying it's not pretty. It's just knitting is more difficult. And so
Mhm.
I think if you're willing to figure that out, there's a reason why it's more difficult and why it looks better, in my
Okay.
opinion. I just can't. I haven't been able to figure it out. I don't know. I think probably because I've tried to teach myself. I need someone who really knows what they're doing to like sit with me and really help me with it. But yeah, I just can't get it. But then so for crocheting, I feel like you get a lot like looser
Mm.
stitches.
Okay.
You can get tight ones like with those hot pads that I made you, but anyway, so I just think sometimes it kind of looks eh.
Right.
But if you find a good pattern, then you just hang on to it and you keep making those things. And
Yeah.
so
That's so
anyway,
fun. Is there like
yeah, it has
is
been
there
fun.
like a craft store where you can like do you have one near you? You can go and get patterns and things like that, or do you just
I mean, I
stuff?
mostly find them online. There's so
Okay.
many free ones online, but even like purchasing, I have found that like the free ones aren't always necessarily the best.
Oh, okay.
If you're willing to pay a few dollars, like on Etsy, people put their patterns on
Okay.
time and yeah,
Fun.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know
it's
how
been
to do
fun.
any of the knitting, crocheting, stringy type things.
Hmm.
I can sew, but and I do want
I
to do that.
mean,
Actually, that's on my winter want to do
sewing?
list. Yeah, I just think
Ooh.
it's a good like winter thing to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
agree.
but no, knitting and crocheting definitely is a good winter cozy thing to do.
Hmm.
But I don't know how.
Yeah.
Sophie does, but
Does she?
hmm
Okay. Knitting or
yeah,
crochet?
she knows how to knit.
Oh, well, then see, maybe Sophia needs to teach me.
Yeah. She just made something the other day. She likes to just do it and then she's like, I don't really know what this is gonna be. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Like
Okay.
she just does the thing and like in a
Hmm.
block and then I don't know.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's fun.
she taught herself. I don't know how she did that, but
Good for
um
her.
yeah, I don't know. Like, cause I know there's like really intricate, people make sweaters and
I
socks and
know.
crazy stuff like that. I'm like, oh,
I know.
wow, that's
Yeah,
pretty cool. But
it is.
um yeah, maybe someday again. People keep asking me like, what are you gonna do like when your kids are almost gone? And I'm like,
How rude.
I'm not really gonna change much of anything. Like my plan
Yeah,
is to be available to do serve my family still. Like it doesn't
yeah.
matter like if they're in my house or not. So
Hmm.
anyway, maybe that will be the time I can
Yeah,
learn. do some of those stringy arts.
There you go.
So I hope that this episode was helpful. I hope that, it just kind of helped to put things in perspective. I know for me, like whenever I do have like a big worry or stress, it is good to talk to a friend who can like kind of help me get my head on straight again. And, um, both the big things like, okay, how much are you praying and how much are
Mhm.
you on your phone? And then just the smaller practical things like making a menu. So I hope that this
Right.
was good on the practical side of things and on the heart side of things. And just remember to do the next right thing. And we will see you soon.